Welcome to the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. On today's episode, we deep dive into the AFC South, the Texans, Colts, Jaguars, and Titans. We'll go through key player ADPs, breakout picks, and fantasy landmines. Before we get into it, don't forget to catch up on past previews, the AFC East, AFC North, NFC East, and NFC North. I'm Raj, along with Fab and Nak. Fab, return of the Fab. Hey, return of the Fab. Oh. Fab is back from a nice vacation in Italy. Welcome back. He was telling us that the podcast has not been the same since he's been back, since he's been gone.
You guys did a very good job while I was away, you know, like I'm not going to say you didn't, but it's just we
missed the off the cuffness, the randomness,
the trifecta, you know, Roger, last episode I heard you butchering everyone's name and I was like, you know what? That's my job. That's not yours. I mean, come on, man. I'm already getting replaced here. Jeez.
And speaking of being replaced, we are joined with a special guest. Chris from the Marshall Experience will be joining us to break down the AFC South. Chris, welcome aboard the Bush League Huddle Fantasy Football Podcast. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. I appreciate you guys having me on.
Awesome. So you could find Chris on TikTok and YouTube at the Marshall Experience. And of course, you could find us, subscribe and follow us on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, X, and of course Twitter. So before we get into it, we'll start with the Texans, the division winner. Just a quick AFC South overview. So Texans, I think if you look at last year, they regressed offensively despite the playoff berth. Colts, if you look into it from last year to this year, still can't decide on a QB. Jags and Titans were in the hunt for the number one overall pick. But if you look at 2025, looks like there's some hope. Hopefully CJ Stroud has a bounce back season. Daniel Jones pushing Anthony Richardson at camp. Liam Coen joins Jacksonville to revamp the offense. And of course, we have Cam Ward, who was the number one overall pick for the Titans. And that brings about a new level of optimism there. So we'll start with the 10-7 Texans. A quick recap. They won the division for the second year in a row. Stroud has had his sophomore slump, whether he was doing too many podcasts, he was traveling too much, he was big brothering Caleb Williams and other QBs too often. And obviously injuries derailed their offensive momentum as well. Some noteworthy changes on the roster. Stephon Diggs is gone. Tank Dell is injured again. They added Christian Kirk as a slot receiver. Nick Chubb joins Joe Mixon in the backfield. And then there's some rookie wide receivers in Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel drafted in the second and third round, respectively. And finally, I think this is a big one. They replaced Bobby Slowick at OC with Nick Caley, who was the previous Rams passing game coordinator. So if we start with the position groups at QB, obviously there's CJ Stroud. Many picked him as a QB5 in preseason last year. He is ranked as QB 19 this year. He is nestled in the Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, JJ McCarthy, Tua Tagovailoa area. One of the key stats to mention is that he led the NFL in pressure rate at 35%, but is a bounce back candidate with new weapons and a revamped offensive line. Chris, I'm going to go to you as a newbie here today. Are you trusting CJ Stroud to have a bounce back year with the new weapons, revamped offensive line, and new offensive coordinator?
It's hard for me to wrap my head around, and I'll explain why in a minute. I think this is the most stress that CJ Stroud is going to have on a season is this next season. All he has is Nico Collins, two rookie wide receivers, and running backs that, they're getting up there in age. So, a lot of this is going to be on CJ Stroud, but for CJ Stroud last year to finish as the quarterback 28 in fantasy points per game makes it easily the biggest faller from his ADP at quarterback 5. Okay, so that downfall speaks a lot into what happened last year. Yes, there was injuries on the offense, and we can chalk that up. He lost Stephon Diggs, but this next year it's hard for me to see him back into that top 5 performance with what he has on the table.
Fab, you're shaking your head.
Well, I agree. Like, I definitely don't see him being in the top 5, not even the top 10. As a QB 19 there's value there because he could turn back QB 15 numbers, I feel like. You're just looking at that crop that are there in that tier 4 that you have around there right now. So like he's hovering around Jordan Love, Trevor Lawrence, JJ McCarthy, and Tua Tagovailoa. There is some optimism, like Marshall experience. Like you got it right. Like he does have a lot of pressure on his shoulders there, but I do like the fact that they added more weapons. I do like the fact that there is a different passing game coordinator, because the Bobby Slowick experience to me wasn't it, in my opinion.
Nope.
And I feel like that they did go out and they did what they could to help with that offensive line, which was an issue for him, right? Like he did lead the NFL in pressure rate, which at the same time, he kind of like the weapons around him. If they stay healthy, I think we're going to be looking at a better season for CJ Stroud. I mean, for me, he's still QB2 range. I'm not banging the drum over here to think he's going to come back as a QB1. Like QB5 in his rookie season was just ridiculous. I don't know if that'll ever be repeated, quite frankly. But I'm a little more optimistic on him. And as a bounce back candidate, listen, he finished as QB 28 last year, 27. It doesn't get much better than that as a bounce back candidate, but I would be okay with him as my QB2. I do like the upside, and his floor, even with his bad games, are not that bad.
So, Chris, one thing to know is obviously, we're focused on two QB in Superflex. Fab has always been bullish on CJ Stroud. Knack was kind of the QB whisper on this sophomore slump coming. Knack, I don't know if you have any thoughts. If you feel a bit better about CJ Stroud coming into the year after, maybe he's been a little bit humbled, new OC, new offensive line.
Yeah. I think that the offensive line were upgrades, but I don't think they were the upgrades that really were, that moved the needle. For me, again, at the quarterback 19, like I agree with Fab, there is value. There's that potential for that bounce back season. I will say that I think that he is a top 15 quarterback. And the reason I say that is because I am so high as an individual on Nico Collins this next year. I think the target share for Nico Collins shoots through the roof.
Yeah, we'll get to the wide receivers. I want you to save that for when we get to wide receivers. Absolutely. Chris, Knack, are you buying or selling CJ Stroud?
I'm selling. I'm still thinking, like, I think what Chris just said, the offensive line, yeah, it's remade up, but is it really remade up to a point where it's going to make that huge of a difference? I'm going to say no. Mixon is already banged up, in the backfield out of camp. That's supposed to miss some time. Nick Chubb is got 2 bad legs, and I don't know how that experiment is going to work out really much. And I don't know. I don't see an avenue where he finishes top 15. Like Goff right now is at 15, right? And then like I even like Drake May over that. I like Jordan Love over that. I even like Trevor Lawrence over that with Liam Coen in Jacksonville. Matthew Stafford's going at 22. There's even Bryce Young that I like even more than Stroud. He's got 2 rookie receivers, right? They're going to be good players, but it's going to take time to figure out the offense. I don't think it meshes and clicks right off the bat, right? You're going to need some rapport with these guys. So I don't know. I'm selling on CJ Stroud. It's one of the quarterbacks I think I'm avoiding because I think there is a question mark there, and I don't want to be around to see the answers. I'd rather go with someone else, even lower to push for closer to that top 15.
Yeah, I think the talent is there with Stroud. I think he's still a very talented passer. Where it's, the offense line additions, they're completely revamped their O-line. Every player they added, or it's going to be a completely new line. Whereas there's no one who's coming back from the previous year,
and that takes time to
gel.
Yeah.
It takes time to gel as well. So I think it'll be interesting to see. We talked about, we'll move on to the running backs now. We mentioned Joe Mixon and Nick Chubb. Joe Mixon is ranked as RB 19 right now, 29 years old. He looks like he's been declining a little bit as if you look at the second half of last year. I owned him in quite a few leagues. He was the RB5 prior to his ankle injury when he got hip drop tackled, but still he has ankle and foot injuries prior to camp. And then there's Nick Chubb, who was added, who we all love Nick Chubb in terms of what he was with the Browns. He was a fantastic player, league winner potential, league winner overall. Fab, how are we seeing this backfield?
Just in the time that you created these show notes, which I very much appreciate because they are very helpful, Joe Mixon has dropped like 8 spots in his ADP. Like right now, his ADP is
Discount?
running back 27. No, like and he's falling and he should be falling. Like this is a running back room to avoid, quite frankly. I am rooting for Nick Chubb just because I root for Nick Chubb and guys that come back from these sorts of injuries. Like you want him to do well, and Nick Chubb is a bona fide baller. We've all seen him do what he did for the Browns, so give the guy a little bit of credit here. I hope he does have a good season, but those are gruesome injuries that he's coming back from. And Joe Mixon, we saw him decline towards the end of last season. Now he's injured during camp and all these other things that are propping up that you wouldn't expect him to prop up. So no, I mean there aren't any running backs that I'm really targeting on this team come draft day. Um, even from a flyer standpoint, maybe Woody Marks. The elite pass catching profile that he has at college. He's rookie. I'm not really sure what year he was drafted out of. Well, sorry, not round he was drafted out of, but he does come up with some interesting stats, and he has a big body of work in college, so that could be interesting. But then again,
He's been talked about a lot in camp. There's been a
yeah,
lot of talk about Woody Marks recently out of USC.
so definitely a name to consider and to look into, and he could be like one of those guys that you pick up with your last pick of the draft because you have nobody else to look for. But apart from that, I mean, it's a lottery ticket that you're looking for with any one of these RBs, and I'm moving on to a different RB room, quite frankly.
Nak, what do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm definitely out on Mixon. I think Chubb right now is going as RB 49. So I mean, if that injury lingers for Mixon, maybe you get a bargain in Chubb later in the later rounds, 11, 12, 13th rounds, and maybe he starts, maybe he takes the reins. You don't know, but I think Fab said it best. There's definitely a running back room to kind of avoid. Right now, give me Pacheco at 27, Caleb Johnson, Jalen Warren at 31. Like there's so many other guys. I don't know. I think there seems to be a lot of stock in this Houston offense for a team that didn't do so great last year, right? So, yeah. Again, I'm. It's a team I don't really like at all this year. I'm not really high on the Texans. Like you said, there's just a lot of changes that go around, and it's not a team that I'm really looking forward, or I'm not a team I'm going to be high hopes for basically this year.
Chris, what do you think about that? Pacheco or Mixon, or even there's Pacheco at 26 right now in the Fantasy Pros composite, Mixon at 27, Caleb Johnson at 28, or even Brian Robinson Jr. at 29. Who would you
Yeah,
take
I
out of
mean,
those?
there's some definite better options. But my ultimate question would be here is how much do we think Nick Chubb is actually going to eat into Joe Mixon's workload? For me, last year Mixon was running back 2 in points per game, behind only your own Saquon Barkley.
Mm,
Okay, he started off real hot.
yeah.
In weeks 1 through 14. That was before the injury, like Roger had said. But then after that had worked as running back 37 in points per game at 8.2. Obviously wasn't living up to the hype in the fantasy playoffs. Now, I think with having that support system in Nick Chubb, I'm a big Nick Chubb fan too myself. I think alleviates the pressure Joe Mixon has, which possibly potentially could make him better. I mean,
Doesn't he? Doesn't that become? Sorry to cut you off, Chris. Doesn't that become a committee then, which makes it even more undraftable?
no, because of the offense for me, and
Hmm.
this goes off of what Max said. The offense is bad, right? But in these bad offenses, there's always a player that has to have the target share, has to have move the offense. Okay, it's going to be Nico Collins in the receiving game, but I mean, you can't tell me that's it. This is going to be a lot of quick passes, a lot of dinks and dunks. And Joe Mixon is going to see a lot of that because, let's be honest, he's the better receiving back out of him and Nick Chubb. Okay,
Yeah,
I
Nick
do
Chubb's
like
pretty
Woody
bad.
Marks. However,
Yeah.
I don't think that he's on that level yet. So, that's my question.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what comes out of Woody Marks in terms of camp, what comes out of it in terms of preseason, how much he's used. I think he's going to get drafted for sure in fantasy leagues as well. But If the only thing I'll take out of this is they're getting Nick Caley from the Rams, and this is something I've talked about a lot in terms of Rams coaches, Rams coaching. The Rams coaching infrastructure always favors one running back. So whether it's McVay, you kind of even saw with Zach, is it Zach Robinson last year with the Falcons, where they obviously featured Bijan Robinson more. I think it'll be interesting to see if they try to hone in on one running back. But Mixon, 29 years old, 30 years old, he doesn't have that crazy superpower that like a Derrick Henry has with regards to speed and power, right? He's always trying to kind of gotten through with guts and will, a bit of slashing and cutting. So if he's already hobbled, I tend to agree with I kind of agree with all of you guys really that it's a backfield to avoid, especially Fab, who really stated it that I don't want anything to do with this backfield. We talked a lot about Nico Collins, talking about CJ Stroud, just talking about this overall offense. Key stat to talk about is Nico Collins averaged 60 yards per game without Stephon Diggs and Tank Dell, but he did see a first read share spike to 37% when they were out. So can Nico Collins maintain WR1 production without Diggs and Dell? I'll give it over to Knack.
Look, when you're talking fantasy football, target share is a big one that you want to see, right? And when you're close to 40% target share, you're going to get you're going to eat at some point, right? Like we mentioned that Stroud may not be whatever, but like we said, he's still a talented quarterback. He's still going to get the ball out, and he's going to get the ball out to Nico Collins. Now, I think he's jumped to wide receiver 4 right now on the board. He leapfrogged Puka Nacua. I think with the injury to Stafford, the Rams players are somewhat dropping, but it seems like in that second tier with the Nico Collins, Nakua, Neighbors, Thomas, Samaron St. Brown, like I think Collins is gonna have a really, really good season. I think that's the player if I had to pick one on the team to, go after and go for, it would definitely be Nico Collins because as I mentioned earlier, those wide receivers are gonna take time to gel and even those screen passes, like we said, the offensive line might not be best, so he might catch some short screens with room to run. I don't know. I personally I like Nico Collins this year for sure.
Chris, what do you think? Yeah, I know you had some thoughts on Nico Collins earlier in.
Yeah, I second that. If we're talking about CJ Stroud to Nico Collins connection, I mean, Nico Collins is one of the single-handedly best wide receivers in fantasy. Last year, he was wide receiver 8 in points per game, yards per route run, number 1, targets per route run, number 9. I mean, he's up there. He should be in top 10 real life for me. But I think he earns top 5 consideration in fantasy land thanks to the potential to breeze past 150 targets to an offense led by just him and Joe Mixon.
Yeah, and Fab will know this more than anyone, but prior to his injury, he had games of 117, 135, and 151 yards. And he still had his 2 other games were of 85, 86, and 78 yards. So Fab, you've always been kind of the cheerleader of Nico Collins fan club. I would assume you are also all in on him this year, despite maybe any trepidation you have with CJ Stroud in the offensive line.
The trepidations I have with Nico Collins have nothing to do with CJ Stroud nor the offensive line. The only trepidations I have with him are his injury concerns.
Yeah.
Like he did miss about 4 games last year. He hasn't played a full season. Like he's missed 1 game or 2 games here and there, and then there are some seasons where he missed like 4 or 5. So that's the only concern that I have. But even with that, he's still a top 10 wide receiver. He's still arguably a top 5 wide receiver because when the guy plays, he balls. He balls out. Like he's fun to watch. He's fun to have on your team, and you're getting 40% target share. Like, what more do you want? I feel like his production in the beginning of the season might be slowed down a little bit, just until the rookie wide receivers like sort of understand the playbook a little bit better. So I feel like until the offense starts to just start humming a little bit more, like I could see that being an issue for him because he gets more double teamed and all that stuff, right? Even though he's a big body wide receiver, it's still tough when everyone is focusing on you. But assuming he stays healthy, like yeah, you're looking at a potential top 5 wide receiver this year. Sorry.
I had forgotten how much time he missed. He has not completed a complete season since he's been drafted. And you
That's
talk
the
about the other wide
only thing
receivers.
against him.
Sorry, repeat that, Fab?
I say that's the only knock I
Yeah.
have against him, because when he does play those 10 games or those 12 games, like, it's wide receiver one numbers, and it's not even close.
Yeah, and just quickly on the other ancillary pieces at the wideout position, Jaden Higgins and Jalen Noel actually both played at Iowa State. They both had really good careers there. Higgins, pretty much the same body type as Collins, 6'4", 220. He seems like a big catch radius touchdown guy. So from what I've been reading, he looks like he'll start opposite Nico Collins. And then Jalen Noel, if anyone listened to our pre-draft shows, I was very high on him in terms of a fast slot player. I think he could replace kind of the Tank Dell. And then lastly, from what I'm seeing, it looks like Christian Kirk, he might be odd man out, depending on what happens in camp, what happens in preseason. We didn't talk about him much, but he's another guy who just absolutely can't stay healthy at all.
Yeah, injury. I was about to say injury prone. Another injury prone player added to
Yeah.
the mix.
Yeah, and then lastly, we'll go quickly. Dalton Schultz at tight end. He is currently ranked as considered a low volume tight end. I mean, I won't go through a roundtable here, but I think from a tight end perspective, Schultz at tight end 27. It's he's around the Jatavian Sanders, Juwan Johnson, Elijah Arroyo area. You take a flyer on him, but he's more of a streamer tight end. Any disagreements on that?
No.
Awesome. So we'll move on to the Indianapolis Colts, who finished 8-9. Very inconsistent season for the Colts. There was flashes of brilliance from Jonathan Taylor, who, we'll talk about it more, but when you look into the numbers, he had a fantastic season. But I think the key thing with the Colts is what's going on with the quarterback position. Obviously, Anthony Richardson, there was serious development concerns with regards to the season he had. He got injured again. So that'll be kind of the storyline from a fantasy perspective and how that leads into the rest of the roster. Some noteworthy changes. Daniel Jones was signed 1 year, $14 million guaranteed. They drafted Tyler Warren at tight end in the first round, and they also lost 2 starting offensive linemen. It felt like a lot of what the Colts did was on the defensive side, which they improved their secondary. So it'll be interesting to see how they fare from an offensive perspective. It starts at the quarterback position. Chris, I'll ask you, is it time to give up on Anthony Richardson, considering he has fewer than 350 career pass attempts and he's barely at 50% completion rate?
I don't think so quite yet. And right now, we all know what the biggest money getter in fantasy football is, and it's on the ground, right? Quarterbacks, dual threat quarterbacks, get the job done, and don't necessarily have to throw for 350 yards to get you a big game, aka Jalen Hurts. But for me, listen, the quarterback most fantasy points per game from purely rushing the last 3 years. Okay, Jalen Hurts at number 1, 9.6. Anthony Richardson is next at 8.2. Okay,
Yeah, with
so
about
that a lot of his fantasy points are coming from the ground, which we understand. He does need to work on his passing game. He needs to work on his health, staying on the football field. There's a lot of things that need to happen, but because of his rushing upside, I'm not so sure I'm ready to hit the panic button.
that second place though, that 8.6 you mentioned, that's in how many games that he's played? Like 6, 8,
Yeah.
right? When you're comparing to a Jalen Hurts, it sounds so much more impressive because he's played how many more games, right? And that stat line. So yeah, for sure. Anthony Richardson is a QB that any given Sunday could put up 30 points. The problem is any given Sunday he could turn around and put up 6.9 points, and
Yes.
you're crying at the end of the week. And it seems that there's a lot more of those 6.9 points that happen, and then he's injured. So for me, look, I guess I have a little bit of a saltiness to him as well. I had first overall pick last year, took Josh Allen in a 2 QB league. And then on the turn, Anthony Richardson was there. So I went for the home run hit of Josh Allen and Anthony Richardson. Thought I was going to win the league with 30 points each a game. And after the second game, he was hurt and ended up dropping him, whatever the case is. It's just, he's too volatile right now. But I guess and he might not even start. he might not be the starter this year. That's the other point, right? Like Daniel Jones is the better thrower of the football. I never thought I'd say that in a sentence, but he is the better thrower out of the two of the football. So with now him not even starting, again, to the Colt on the Colt side, I'm not going to give up on him. Still on a rookie contract, still got control. That's fine. But if you're going to get beat out of camp by Daniel Jones, that's very, very telling to me.
But did you guys think, Fab, do you think he'll actually get beat out? Daniel Jones, supporter number one, still?
Yes. Yes, Daniel Jones always shows up to camp. It's the regular games that he forgets to play. But just to add on the Anthony Richardson thing, from a fantasy football perspective, right now he's going as QB 29. So in leagues like ours, where you're drafting 2 QBs, Superflex, all that stuff, he is the definition of a lottery pick. You're taking him as your third quarterback, assumingly after you drafted your starters. And this is the guy that's like, you know what? If he hits, he's a league winner. If he hits and stays healthy and plays more than 6 games, like Chris said, based on his sample size, like if he plays more than those games, like he is a league winner. He is what Knack wanted him to be last year. And like, yeah, you win fantasy, like you get fantasy points more with your legs than you do with your arms, right? We've seen that with a bunch of different players, especially from a quarterback perspective. So yeah, obviously there's interest, especially at QB 29. Like you're looking at the guys that are around that spot. Like I'm not taking Joe Flacco over Anthony Richardson. I'm not taking Russell Wilson. I'm not taking Aaron Rodgers. Those guys have very solid floors, but like they have no ceilings. Cam Ward, we have no idea what he is. Sam Darnold, we're assuming that he's going to be the Sam Darnold of old and send ghosts and all that stuff, right? So it's like, okay, if I got to throw a dart somewhere at QB 29, this is my third QB off that I'm adding to my team. Yeah, I'll take Anthony Richardson. And worst case, I drop him. Big deal.
Chris, do you have anything to add
there? No. I mean, I think that Daniel Jones definitely gets the job. I do agree with Mac on that.
So that the way apparently Anthony Richardson starting the first preseason game, Daniel Jones starting the second preseason game, Shane Steichen and the offense, they need to look at Justin Fields and say, how do I get Anthony Richardson to just be Justin Fields? How do I get him to utilize his legs, but at least increase his accuracy get to 60% accuracy rate, right? Get him to at least do 2 progressions instead of just, maybe not 3 progressions, or maybe just one read looks, right? Look at Jalen. You're wearing an Eagles cap, Chris. Look at Jalen Hurts. Everyone talks about how Jalen Hurts, he's just a runner. He still is not, maybe he's a top 12 passer, right? But he's able to make just enough plays and not make boneheaded mistakes. Anthony Richardson, if he could just start making some of the layups that he's given, run the offense for him, he might have a chance to actually revive his career.
And maybe not take unnecessary hits.
Yes.
He has to avoid contact.
And not do that.
Yeah, and
he has
definitely
to not look for
pull out of the
contact
game
when he's rushing to the end zone. Like,
yes.
Dude, you're built like a linebacker. Don't play like one. You're a quarterback. What's so hard to understand?
I still think we talked about this in one of our old shows. I still think he wins the role just because they need to figure out once and for all what they have in him. And if this isn't the year, then they move on. One guy who I don't think we have to ever doubt his spot in terms of running back rankings is Jonathan Taylor. He is listed as the RB11 right now. He finished RB13 with 11 catches, and he missed 3 games. So I went through his game log, and I did not realize how dominant he was. He averaged 32 carries and 173 yards and 2.3 touchdowns over his final 3 games. He's a complete zero in PPR. They sometimes don't utilize him on third down. But to me, at RB11, Chris, is he the best bargain in terms of a running back at what the cost you get versus the production in the league?
What scares me with Jonathan Taylor is the injuries. Okay. Now, reminder that when JT ran for 1,431 yards and 11 touchdowns in just 14 games last season.
Yeah.
Which was 102 yards per game, which is, the fantasy community is wonderful. But his last full healthy season was 2021. And that was 2,171 total yards and 20 touchdowns. So you see the production, how it increases when he can stay healthy. Now, however, the last 3 years we have obviously had the high ankle sprains. He started the year on the IR with a back injury, apparently in 23, and then the torn thumb ligament that pulled him out for the rest of the season. You know what I mean? Yes. So like, there's just always something, and he's missing these games. Now, however, I'm happily scooping him up in like round 2 of fantasy drafts this offseason. I do think around like the Derrick Henrys and the Ashton Genties because of the workload and what that, I mean, like I said, if he can stay healthy, that production, that 20 touchdown production is fantasy gold. And
yeah, exactly. He has no competition. There's no one of note that's behind him. Fab, I mentioned where he is listed in terms of kind of that tier 3 running back range. Right after him is one of your favorites, Kyren Williams. Who do you trust more in terms of kind of an RB1, Jonathan Taylor or Kyren Williams?
I like Jonathan Taylor. I had him last year in a few of my leagues. The injury concern is there for me. I agree with Chris 100%, but when he's like a lunch pail, blue chip type of player when it comes to running backs.
Yes.
I mean, as a low end RB1, which is where he's being ranked right now, like RB11, I think it is. You can do a lot worse. I might be just a little bit more higher today on Kyren Williams than I was yesterday, just because he signed that contract. So I figured they're going to get at least one good year out of him. And we all know how Sean McVay is with his running backs.
Punt returner Kyren Williams?
Yeah, punt returner Kyren Williams. Yeah, he returned a total of 0 punts last year. I can't. What a mess that was. But anyway, I like Jonathan Taylor. I do. Like, sure, I might like Josh Jacobs more and Bucky Irving more, but I won't be totally upset if I might reach for a different wide receiver or a quarterback and then say, you know what, I'll take Jonathan Taylor on the turn later on after. I'll be totally fine with that. He gives you back proper RB1 numbers despite not having any PPR value.
Yeah. I think there's not many of these guys that are just pure runners left in the league, right?
No,
like there's really not. There's
really
all these running backs that are catching balls now, and this guy is still that pure runner, and I think you're happy to have him. And honestly, they figure to run a lot with 2 QBs that struggle with consistency, so he's going to see a lot of the ball, and it'd be nice to have his catches over that 18 mark this year. But I mean, yeah, I think they're gonna, again, he's got to stay healthy. If he can only miss 1 or 2 games, you're happy with that, and hopefully it's earlier on rather than playoff time. But yeah, I'm for sure all in on Jonathan Taylor.
Fab?
Just wondering, if Daniel Jones start, is that better or worse for Jonathan Taylor?
In my opinion,
better.
Because he's the passer. He's the better passer. Richardson's going to take away from his rushing.
That's my logic as well.
Well, Daniel Jones runs also, but I mean, Daniel Jones could probably sustain more drives than Anthony Richardson as well, so he'll be on the field more also.
I'm so happy this podcast is being recorded, so I can have these those sound bites of Knack propping up Daniel Jones every now and then.
I feel sick to my stomach while speaking today.
Well, Chris, you mentioned the 2021 1,800 yard, 18 touchdown season from Taylor in 2021. Carson Wentz was the QB, and counting stats, Carson Wentz was good, but everything I read or remember from that season, Colts fans did not like him at all. He was just a very, very bad player for them, and they ended up going with Matt Ryan the year after. And then, as we know, that kind of started the merry-go-round of quarterbacks for the Colts. So we'll move on to the pass catchers, the wide receivers. Josh Downs, Michael Pittman, funny enough, ranked wide receiver 42 and wide receiver 43. Knack, who do you like out of those two?
I like Josh Downs.
Yeah.
I'm a Josh Downs guy. Pittman is just the guy that they, I think, way overpaid that had that one like great season. And then look, like we're saying, if hopefully Daniel Jones starts, Downs had a pretty good time with Joe Flacco when he was in there, right? When someone
15
was
fantasy points per game.
That's what I'm saying, that he could actually pass the ball and get it over the middle. Huge PPR guy as well, and he could turn on the Jets. This guy, I was surprised to see how fast this guy was. I had also had him in a couple of my leagues and was struggling when Anthony Richardson was there. So if Anthony Richardson starts, probably a little bit more, down on downs, no pun intended there. But yeah, I don't know. I definitely like him over Pittman. If I have to see, like, if when you're looking even at rankings at 42 and 43, give me Downs over Pittman all day.
Yeah, what do you guys think, Fab or Chris?
I'm on board with that. I like it. I mean, I'm upset for Michael Pittman. Like after that one season, and he cashed in. I was like, okay, this guy is actually legit. Like in that 100 reception year and all that stuff. Like he looked like he was balling out, and it just didn't work out last year. Maybe Daniel Jones can help turn that around a little bit. I can't believe how many times we've said Daniel Jones on this podcast. But
Too much.
too much. But I do like the Josh Downs idea, though. I think there is a lot of value there. Wide receiver 42 right now, and I think people might be sleeping on that because there is some talent over there. He's super reliable in the slot. I like it.
Yeah, and there's also AD Mitchell, who they picked in the second round. I actually completely forgot about him until I saw a tweet about him today at training camp. I completely forgot he was on the team, but second rounder. Let's see what they think about him.
Texas, right?
Texas, yeah, and I think Pittman. I think that contract was already a few years ago. So I think they're it'll be interesting to see if they make Downs the focal point. What do they do with AD Mitchell? Another guy to factor into, maybe the biggest person to factor into, is Tyler Warren out of Penn State.
Penn
Chris, I want to know
State.
your thoughts. What are realistic expectations for Tyler Warren, considering the year he had last year at Penn State? I think it was over 1,200 yards, something 80 or 90 catches or so. Tight end 13 right now. What are your thoughts?
I think at tight end 13 is super valuable. Warren's potential range of outcomes really in 2025 seemingly go from the number 3 option or number 4 overall target in that offense in a even if Daniel Jones is the starter in an okay passing game. It's not like it's Joe Burrow or Josh Allen.
Took us back down to earth. I love that.
You know what I mean? So, but to be the future featured wide receiver inside an offense that generally gotten the most out of its quarterbacks under Shane Steichen, big Shane Steichen fan. I don't. I agree with the tight end 13, but I think that he will end up more than tight end 13. We don't know what he's going to be. He's going to be a super gadget player. They were talking about in camp how he was going to be the next Taysom Hill, how he was taking snaps at Penn State from the Wildcat.
Well, that's what he was at Penn State. He was like H-back ish.
Yeah.
I don't think he's Brock Bowers, which Brock Bowers also played H-back. Brock Bowers is a big run after catch guy at Georgia. I don't think Warren is that. I just don't think he's athletic enough. Tight end has been an absolute wasteland for the Colts. Honestly, I don't think they've been able to have anyone since Eric Ebron, and I think before Ebron, it's is it Dallas Clark?
Clark.
It's been a disaster position. I think it's interesting in terms of how Shane Steichen will use him, considering maybe they'll go back to some of the Dallas Goedert, Zach Ertz years in terms of how they use him. Knack, Fab, like I don't know, like if you're Luke or buddy Lucas or Guido, who they seem like they love drafting tight ends early. Is this one you guys are kind of banking on trying to draft early, just maybe thinking he might be the tight end one?
No, I can't see it. Tight end 1. I don't see a way he gets into the top 10 realistically with what's out there right now. I've got a little hopes for maybe someone else that can come jump in, but it's gonna be he's gonna have, like he said, he's gonna have to be used as a gadget, and he's gonna have to be reliable gadget. Like he's gonna have to be, I don't know. It's tough as a rookie. Like you said, he's not Brock Bowers. Like Brock Bowers came in and destroyed the league, and I just, like you said, not athletic enough. I just don't see it. I wouldn't put my eggs in this basket.
Yeah.
Yeah, neither would I, and it has nothing to do with Tyler Warren for me. It has everything to do with the quarterbacks. Because even Daniel Jones, like when he was playing with the Giants, he wasn't exactly targeting his tight ends often, and Anthony Richardson doesn't target anyone. So I don't like Tyler Warren. Like he's gonna have to be the Taysom Hill of that offense to get any sort of fantasy value, and it sucks because like you look at him as tight end 13, as a rookie, highly touted rookie, there could be something there. after the top 4 guys in tight ends, like everything is just a wash, in my
Yeah.
opinion. I know you guys have mentioned it while I was on vacation. Like it's kind of sort of been the feeling for tight ends this year. And you think like, okay, you know what, tight end 13, there is some value there, but unfortunately not for him in this offense with the quarterbacks they're throwing to him, in my opinion.
Great points on all. We'll move on to the 4-13 Jacksonville Jaguars. Just absolute coaching disasters. I saw you, Nak. Go for it.
Duval.
Thank you. I just saw your face like, oh, I missed your Duval cue.
How was it supposed to be pronounced?
Duval.
Just
Duval.
Duval?
Duval?
Duval.
So he like butchered that, in the press
Duval?
conference?
Duval.
Completely butchered.
My
Do
goodness.
you have a Duval for us, Chris?
No, Duval.
That's probably worse.
I wasn't that bad.
That was the goal. The goal is to be worse than Coen.
That was
There
good.
was.
Speaking
That was
of
good.
Coen, new coach again for the Jaguars. It's been an absolute disaster for Trevor Lawrence. He started with the Urban Meyer disaster, and then we thought maybe Doug Peterson might be able to right the ship considering his Super Bowl run with your Eagles, Chris. That did not work out. So and then another new coach. We have Liam Coen, as we mentioned, coming in. There's been Etienne, lack of inefficiency, and what are we going to do with this team in terms of noteworthy changes? We mentioned Coen. Obviously, Travis Hunter is being added to Brian Thomas Jr., who had a sensational rookie year. Bashal Tutin was drafted in round 4 to join the backfield with Etienne along with Tank Bigsby. And now with Evan Ingram gone, there's Brenton Strange, who seems to have been promoted as tight end 1 for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Trevor Lawrence, QB 18. We're about 3 to 4 years away from the 4,100 yard season, 25 TD, 8 INT playoff year where they upset the Chargers. Fab, what are we doing with Trevor Lawrence? Is it make or break? Are we past the make or break standpoint?
I feel like it's been make or break for him, like for the last few seasons. I don't know if there's been a quarterback that's had a longer leash than Trevor Lawrence, and at QB 18 for me, I'm weary, to be honest with you. Like I am optimistic because of Liam Coen, and we saw what he did with Tampa last year. But to be fair, like Baker Mayfield had a good season prior to Liam Coen, so I'm not totally saying it's because of Liam Coen that he had a better season or as good of a season, but I am optimistic that Trevor Lawrence can get back into the relevant quarterback area. But at the same time, I still have some cause for concern. I don't have a lot of confidence in him, and we've talked about other guys in that range that could be more interesting, like the Drake Mays of the world. I don't know. If I can avoid it, I will. To be honest with you, it's not really a thought process that I want to have in my head.
What do you guys think?
He sure seems like the guy that I feel everyone is so far away from that could come in this year, be drafted really low, and become that top 10 guy. Like, yeah, like it's something that like everyone forgets he was a first overall pick. He did dominate everywhere at every level, high school, college. He won everywhere. So it's like to give up on him is I feel like it's crazy, but I could also say that like this is it. Like this is your year. Like this is the time to do it, to show up, show out, because or else like you've got the Brian Thomas Jr. You now added another weapon in Hunter. You've got another running back to play with. Like you've got some toys, you've got some shiny toys to play with, and like Liam Coen, like I said, he kind of revived Baker Mayfield. But this is a guy that I feel like is sneakily going underneath the radar. Everyone's sweeping him underneath the rug, and he could come in and surprise.
Chris, I want to go back to you. So you're wearing that Eagles cap. You're a big Eagles fan. Doug Peterson brought you guys a championship, and then he would believe he was fired. And then Doug Peterson came to the Jaguars and then was fired. Is there anything from Doug Peterson's time with the Eagles at the end that, in terms of what happened in Jacksonville, gives you optimism that he's no longer there and being replaced by Liam Coen?
I was never a Doug Peterson fan. I thought that it was Nick Foles and Frank Wright that wrecked that that won that Super Bowl. It wasn't Doug Peterson, in my opinion. Wasn't necessarily happy to see him go because I didn't know what the next step was. But when he went to Jacksonville, I kind of seen this coming. It's a bad situation, and I lean on that for Trevor Lawrence. Okay, I got two sides to this. Trevor Lawrence was the number. He was a high draft pick. He succeeded in college. I like what Liam Coen did with Baker Mayfield. On the other side of that, Baker Mayfield is not Trevor Lawrence. Okay, again, I agree with Fab. Baker Mayfield has had that better season already, and prior to Liam Coen, so Liam Coen fed off of that. It's going to be a little harder with Trevor Lawrence now that he's gotten into this rut. But with that said, I'm labeling Lawrence as one of my quarterbacks that I'm not having to need to go out of my way to draft.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, around guys like Justin Herbert, Jordan Love, even JJ McCarthy. McCarthy's the only one that hasn't demonstrated a higher ceiling than Lawrence during their respective careers. So it's sort of a depth that makes waiting at quarterback, okay. But again, I agree with Knack that if he clicks with Liam Coen, he could click. I mean, he could be top 12 potential in my opinion if he works out in this offense with the weapons he has. But it's a big risk.
I feel like everyone is looking at drafting him as especially in 2 QB Superflex QB3. Like, hey, I'll take him at QB3.
Oh my god! Yeah.
If I see proof of concept for 3-4 weeks,
he will go.
He's going to go sooner though. He's not going.
He always goes sooner.
He's going to go in the top 20.
He always goes way earlier
than,
especially in our league and Bush League. He always goes earlier than I would dare take him. If for some reason he doesn't, I'll happily pounce, but I don't want him as a QB1 or QB2. We'll move on to another questionable position for the Jaguars, the running back position. Travis Etienne Jr., RB31. He was the RB3 in 2023.
Yeah.
Last year, he averaged 3.75 yards per carry on 417 carries. Sorry, over the last 2 seasons. I've always said his biggest issue is inefficiency in short yardage. That's why they have Tank Bigsby, who is ranked at RB42. I don't know, Knack, we talked about the Texans. To me, this is another running backfield to avoid. I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I think. Well, look, Tootin and Bigsby, I think are perfectly rated or where they are, in drafting position, because I don't even see Etienne finishing the year with the Jaguars this year. I don't predict them to be, vying for that division crown either, right? So it could be trade deadline. Maybe they want to get rid of him or something like that. There's something's got to give here, right? There's 3 capable guys in this backfield. I don't think it could stay that way forever. And Tootin, I think, is the most interesting one out of the 3. Definitely has explosive speed and future passing down back, right? So I just, the value is there more with taking a shot with, let's say, a Tootin than I would go even Etienne. Etienne, that's flex territory. Are you okay with putting Etienne in your flex week in and week
Not
out?
even.
I'm
No.
not.
I'm not.
I don't know about you guys, but I'm not.
No,
Absolutely
I agree.
not.
I feel we all feel the same way about this backfield. So it's one to avoid.
Well, for me, I think the best case scenario, they have the best case scenario, and that's Liam Coen. Liam Coen with the Bucs last year racked up the league's 4th most rushing yards, while ranking 3rd in yards per attempt. Now, we go off of that. Now, is the Buccaneers running back room that much better than the Jacksonville Jaguars? Possibly, right? But I think Liam Coen brings that energy, and I think he likes to run the ball. And I think he likes to utilize his running back in several different ways, a.k.a. Bucky Irving and Rashad White. And, I think that he can do that with the Jackson, with ETN, and find a role for Tank Bigsby. Tootin, the one thing that scares me is the fumbles. The fumbles was an issue in college, and it makes me a little nervous. But I give everybody a chance, and he gets his.
Yeah, it's a good point on Coen aspect for a rushing perspective. I think the issue is the run blocking, right? How the Bucs have an All-Pro on the offensive line. They have a pretty established and pretty tenured offensive line. I think that's an area where the Jaguars are still struggling. We'll move on quickly to the wide receiver position. Chris, I want to know, how are you thinking about drafting Travis Hunter, considering the recent news that he was going to play, it sounds like 80% of his snaps were on offense. But then there's talk about he's in 50% of the defensive meetings, 50% of the offensive meetings. Seems like there's a lot of back and forth stuff. I tweeted out today that I don't think we're going to know anything definitive until week 1. Any noise you hear about his type of usage, whether on offense or defense, I think that's just noise right now. Do you see him as a bona fide WR30 right now, which ranks him as a WR3 in fantasy?
I think he has the potential to. For me, right now he's playing first team offense, second team defense. But I mean, what's there not to get excited about? I mean, the kid's good. I mean, we can't argue that. Liam Coen is going to take this new toy and he's gonna utilize it, right? Now, how often is the big question. I think that this will kind of stick. Okay, I think that if you look back, okay, into the Deion Sanders days, I think we are done with that. Okay, but I don't think that him playing 70% offense, taking a series off, and then because they have De'Ami Brown. I mean, De'Ami Brown's a good guy that can take off the top, right?
He was really good. He was really good at the end of the season for the Commanders, especially
absolutely.
the playoff game against the Lions.
Yes. Yep. So, they have a capable wide receiver 2 body that's already done it before. So he takes the series off and then he goes back on defense. I mean, I think it can be done. And it'll be a really fun season to watch, but it's hard for me not to get excited about Hunter.
That, I think, from your point, that's what I think scares me a little bit, is the percentage of plays that he's going to play on the offensive side of the ball. Should it be more offensive? It's, I guess, like I said, it seems like it will be, but it's also, I feel like it's going to be a lot of game script, right? So if he's going to be needed more on defense, maybe he's going to play more on defense. If he's going to be you know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's going to be one of those things where it could flip flop every single week, right? So maybe one week he plays 70% offense and the next week he plays 70% defense.
That's
then what are you
such a
going to
good
do?
point.
You got him in your lineup, and then what are you going to do, right? So I feel like it's never going to be 50-50 or 60-40 every single week. It's going to change every single week. And that's why, to me, wide receiver 30 is outrageous, because you just never know what, you're putting him in your lineup as your third wide receiver and you just don't know what you're going to get week in and week out.
Such a good point, Nak.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we have at tight end, Brenton Strange. Looking at his game log now, he actually had some pretty good games. He had a 5 for 59 game against the Packers. He had an 11 catch game against the Jets for 73 yards, and he ended the season with 4 for 60. I think he's a really solid option at tight end with no Evan Ingram, obviously. I think it's another one, maybe better than a streamer than, say, a Dalton Schultz. Any thoughts on Brenton Strange? I know, was it Fab? You had him a bit in our Bush League last year?
Go check out.
No, Nak had him.
I did, yeah.
Nak
and go
had him.
check out his YouTube highlights as a Nittany Lion. Just go check it out.
Ex Nittany Lion too.
I don't need to do that. He's the number 1 tight end on an offense that needs a tight end, and he's going at tight end 20 right now, and he's good. Like, for me, that is all I need to do.
He looks good.
He had a few, some decent games last year, and he figures going to be heavily featured in the offense, right? Nak's point is very good. You don't know what type of role Travis Hunter is going to play from one game to another. And I think that opens the door for more targets for Brenton Strange too, just to get him involved in those types of scenarios where they need another pass catcher and Travis Hunter is more focused on defense.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, especially with Travis, you don't know what Travis Hunter's situation, right? Obviously, when he's off the field, Brenton Strange's target share goes up immediately. I do think that, this is one of those players that's the Puka Nacua type, right? Last year, week 2 waiver wire hits, and we're all going after the same player, and it turns out to be the league winner. Brenton Strange has that ability to, with the target share and the just the full-time role. I mean, it's don't be afraid to use at least a late round pick on a potential top 10 breakout.
Yeah. Like, nobody's talking about him. Like
Yeah.
people are drafting guys like Hunter Henry and Tyler Warren before him,
especially Henry. Like
especially Hunter
He
Henry. Like what?
is the most boring player ever.
I feel like
I
it's been there, done that for Henry. So I agree with you guys on Brenton Strange. And with all this hoopla about Travis Hunter, we obviously glossed over Brian Thomas Jr. He's going
Oh, yeah.
ranked as WR8 now, just after Nico Collins, right before Drake London and AJ Brown. I think that's a perfect rating for him. I personally like him more than Drake London. And again, the AJ Brown stuff, we've talked about AJ Brown in previous episodes. Just always unsure about the Philly situation because they run the ball so much, and I feel like his target share is going less and less. But if there's no disagreements here, WR8 for Brian Thomas Jr. In line for another breakout, a potential bigger season than last year with a new offensive coordinator. I think that's perfect for him.
Agreed.
We shall move on to, last but not least, the Tennessee Titans, the 3-14 Tennessee Titans, bottom 5 scoring offense, fully rebuilding now with Cam Ward. Gone or out for the season is Will Levis. This is a big year for that coaching staff, for Brian Callahan. He came in from Cincinnati. Honestly, the team didn't look good. Levis didn't improve. They looked disorganized. Didn't seem like they had a great plan either. They fired their GM, the GM that I believe fired Mike Vrabel. So there's a lot of work for this organization to do after they let go of Mike Vrabel, after they traded AJ Brown. So in terms of any other noteworthy changes, as mentioned, Cam Ward was drafted number 1 overall. They still have Calvin Ridley as the WR1. They didn't really add anyone of note except for favorite of mine, Xavier Restrepo and Gunnar Helm at tight end. And they obviously have Tony Pollard and Tyjae Spears in the mix. So it's no secret anymore. I am a big supporter of Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is going to have a very good rookie season. Actually, if I looked at some of the previous rookie seasons from number 1 overall picks, Cam Newton had the best one in terms of fantasy points at 370. Then it was Jameis Winston at 281 with the Bucks, Baker Mayfield at 260 with the Browns, Peyton Manning at 241. Trevor Lawrence at 211, and then Joe Burrow, who was on pace for way better, but he only finished at 193. I personally think Cam Ward could finish in the kind of 280 realm. I think he's going to have a ton of yards. I don't think he's going to throw a lot of touchdowns because the
Really?
weapons are not necessarily there. Go at it. What do you guys think? Let you guys figure it out. What do you guys think about that?
He's not that high for me.
Really?
No, for me. Well, look, the Titans last year were just one of 8 offenses to allow 50 plus sacks and wound up ranking a low 30th in support cast rating. Okay, just the team around him is bad. The offensive line is bad.
They improved it though. They signed your guy, right, Knack, from the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Yeah, the guy that gave up the most sacks last year.
Yeah, I mean it's not Will Levis.
It's a new guy. It's like
it's not Will Levis, but I gotta see.
Guys, I'm gonna take a back seat on this one. Okay, I'll see you guys with the wide receivers.
Yeah.
All right.
He's quarterback 27. I think that maybe the rushing upside, if we get to see a little bit of that, since he was in Miami, if we get to see a little bit of rushing upside, I like the value at quarterback 27. But yeah, I'm definitely not. 280 points is top
amazing.
5. Yeah, that's craziness.
Keep underselling my guy Cam Ward. I will take him. I will scoop him up.
Hey, I stand in the paint. I'll be the first one back.
Since Fab punted on this, Knack, what do you think?
Yeah, they signed Dan Moore to that massive contract, which is going to get the Steelers a nice 3rd round pick for that. And he allowed, in 2024, he allowed the most sacks in the NFL with 12. So they just gave him $80 million to protect their new prized possession, and he allowed the most sacks last year. That's why, and like you said, the support cast, that's the great stat that you pulled out there, Chris. That was where I was going, is the team around them is just bad. Like, I like the player, Cam Ward. He's a good player, good quarterback. He just went to the absolute worst situation I think he could have done. And I've said it on many pods beforehand. The Titans are a boring team, and I've always been that boring team, I feel. It's been a while since they've been really relevant. Even when they went, they were first overall in the AFC with Vrabel. They were still boring team. I found, I don't. I think he's going to have
Yeah,
a
but
good
yeah, just because you're
career.
boring doesn't mean you can't be a good like boring
Right,
doesn't do
right.
anything.
But I don't see him. 280 is a
Yeah,
lot of
boring doesn't
fantasy
produce
points.
fantasy though.
That's what that and that's where exactly. Thank you for that, Chris. But I think he's perfectly placed at that 27 mark because you have Darnold there, you have Aaron Rodgers, which you don't know what you're going to get. You also have Wilson, who might not play out the whole season. They're probably going to go to the rookie. Daniel Jones and Richardson are there because we don't know who's starting, and then even Joe Flacco. Like, he's perfectly rated in that QB3 range for me. He's definitely a QB3. There's no way I'm starting him week in and week out on this Titans team unless I have him on my team as a QB3 and he decide and there's promise and he puts up points. But I think there's going to be a lot of 12, 13 point games in the future for Mr. Cam Ward this year.
Those are all great arguments.
Yeah.
I'm betting on the player I saw in college. I'm betting on the play style as well. That's going to be they're gonna throw the ball a ton, and his play style is throwing the ball a lot, and that's why I mentioned where I think he'll get a lot in yards. I think he'll get some rushing because he has escapability. The touchdowns is where TBD on that front, but I really disagree on the boring part. Watch him play. He's gonna be super fun to watch. Like the rolling around, the throwing it deep, the extremely quick release.
To
Like that's
who?
that's that's why I fell in love with him. I think that's gonna be actually really. He's gonna be a really fun player to watch. I think they're gonna make a ton of mistakes, but I could see him carving out, like a low end QB2 niche for the Titans.
Wow.
It's okay. It's good. I want everyone to look
We
away
already
from
know
him.
that's your quarterback that you're
He's my
targeting.
guy. He's my guy.
We've said it
He's my
before,
guy.
but top 20 is like insane with
Well,
the
top
players that are
24.
above him. Like, there's no room for him. If he finishes top 20, Raj, I don't know what I'll give you, but I think we have another bet brewing already early on this week. But
Okay.
there's no
Okay.
way he
Okay.
finishes top 20.
How many? My question is
25. You're right.
how many leagues do you have
25.
Cameron Ward in?
None so far. We haven't drafted yet, but everyone knows I'm high on him on Bush League. Another guy that we'll move on to the running backs first before we talk about a guy that Fab has always been high on. Tony Pollard, RB27. He's
100%.
nestled in the RB25. He's nestled in the Joe Mixon, Caleb Johnson, Brian Robinson Jr. range. He averaged 3.9 yards per carry in the second half in 2024, but I thought he had surprisingly good season. He was able to get to 1,000 yards. It was his bounce. I believe it was his bounce back season after the torn ACL with the Cowboys. And there's obviously Tajay Spears at running back 38. Very efficient player, but he's a smaller guy. He lacks end zone work. This might be the best kind of committee backfield in the division. Obviously, Jonathan Taylor is the best back in the division, but in terms of what you could get out of Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears, I think those are two usable players, be it as an RB2 and a flex. Chris, any thoughts on that? Like, how are you feeling about Tony Pollard this year?
Yeah, I'm just not a big Tony Pollard fan. Last year he was really handed the reins there for a second to only finish as running back 22 in points per game. Okay, that's not bad, but it's also not the same as DeAndre Swift or Rashad White in the same ADP level. I do think that he's in a committee because I think that they are both Pollard and Spears are both an injury away from one place and the other. So I think that Pollard's workload would go up and Spears would obviously be the workload. But it's tough for me to chart to again 30th in support cast rating. It's hard for me to take anybody off this Tennessee team that isn't Cameron Ward right
Yeah, and honestly, for me, I think they're both nothing more than flex plays. I
Yeah, I
can't
agree.
see I can't see myself putting one into my RB2 slot. And then again, the weeks where you do put them in your flex and the other one goes off, you just want to shoot yourself. Like it's just you just like it's such a tough backfield because they both, like you said, they could both put up those 15 to 20 points at any given Sunday, but it's like which one you roll the dice with on any given week. But either way, for me, it's flex play. at best.
Yeah, the variance is going to be an issue with them because you know what the floor is going to be from a week in and week out standpoint. Just you don't know who's going to pop. Yeah, so I agree. I'm with the flex play on that as well. These aren't guys that I'm necessarily targeting. These are more of the okay. I need someone to put in my flex. Here's Tony Pollard, which you know something like he does play better when he gets less reps. I felt like when he was
Mhm.
the guy in Dallas for that last year, that was when everything sort of went off the rails, and he had some good production last year. But again, we're talking about flex numbers here. We're not talking about guys that you're going to be looking to start week in and week out.
Well, the Dallas series, he was at 5 yards per carry.
Yeah,
Um,
Dallas, he was good.
His
Yeah,
last
yeah,
year where he had the most, he was at 5 yards per carry when he was splitting the backfield with Zeke.
yes.
When Zeke left after, and he was the guy with all that volume, like it was unsustainable for him.
Agreed. We'll move on to the wide receivers. Fab's favorite player, Calvin Ridley. Fab, what do you think about Calvin Ridley? So he actually ranked second in deep targets last year in 32 deep targets, and actually first in air yards. Not air yards completed, but overall air yards. That's attempts and completion at almost 1,900 in 2024. He's being ranked as WR 35 right now in fantasy pros. So, or actually now with the latest update, WR 31.
27.
So he's just before George Pickens, Jerry Jeudy, aforementioned Travis Hunter, and Rome Odunze. You've been quite critical of him.
I have.
Are you still critical of him?
I am not. No.
Okay. State your case.
So from a value perspective, from a sheer target volume perspective, from the body of work that we saw last year, where he had Mason Rudolph throwing to him and Will Levis throwing to him, and he did have games where he absolutely blew up. I like Calvin Ridley a lot, especially at this spot. I mean, if he was ranked like 10 spots higher, I would be like, okay, let's pump the brakes. But as a wide receiver 31, especially considering the other wide receivers that are going in that range, I think he has the highest upside out of all of them. You're talking about Chris Olave that nobody wants to touch with a 10-foot pole. You're
Yep.
talking about Jameson Williams, who is good, but we're not really sure if he's going
Volatile.
to continue his ascent. Is very volatile. Thank you. George Pickens is like the only player that I would take over Calvin Ridley in that area, just because he's been going off at cap right now. When you guys mentioned in your NFC East podcast, when Dak is healthy, he could potentially be an MVP style player. He can definitely be a top 5 player. I know Dak was very heavy on Dak being an MVP. So and then you have like Jerry Jeudy.
We were joking.
Yeah, I know. I was aware of
Case
it.
you were
Sarcasm, man. Come
okay.
on, get with it.
Sorry,
I like.
I didn't catch your sarcasm there.
I like. I like Calvin Ridley, and Cam Ward is what makes Calvin Ridley interesting to me. Like I know that everyone was poo pooing on you, Roger, earlier about saying 280 fantasy points or whatever it was, and I do think there's going to be a lot of yardages that are going to come from that. I think realistically, Cam Ward can probably throw for somewhere around like 3,800 yards and maybe flirt with like 22, 25 touchdowns, which is not crazy for a rookie, even considering the
I
supporting
mean,
cast.
that'll
That's
get you to 280, bud.
that's a lot.
Ish.
That'll get you over 280.
I said flirt. I'm not saying it's going to happen.
No
It's
chance.
possible.
25 TDs.
Come on the dark side, brother. Come on the
No
dark
chance.
side.
It's
25
hard for
TDs.
me to say he's going to have a good season because the cast is not great. But then again, you look at the other side of it, there's still Calvin Ridley there who can still ball out. But from a fantasy perspective, I like him as a weekly wide receiver 3, with some potentially wide receiver 2 upside. I think there is a possibility that he pops a little bit this year.
Yeah, I would be remiss if we didn't mention that Tyler Lockett. I'm not advocating as this being a good move or not, but they did add Tyler Lockett, a veteran presence. They got rid of Treylon Burks. That experience was an absolute disaster. Xavier Restrepo had the worst 40 of probably ever for a wide receiver, 4.9, but an absolute dog. Like perfect type of player for them to have. Like
Played with Cam Ward.
he played with Cam Ward. So he played with
Exactly.
Cam Ward, as did Elik Ayomanor did not play with Cam Ward, but he's another of the rookie wide receivers that they just picked up. He had a really solid 2-year career at Stanford, 62 catches each year, 1,000 yards in his first season at Stanford, and then 830 yards his second season. So I think they are trying to revamp the roster a little bit. I agree. It's not the best roster. I think that's a great stat that you pulled up, Chris, in terms of support cast rate. I think they're going to throw the ball a ton. And I'm curious to see how Ward and Restrepo, and last but not least, I don't know why I'm always high on the. I don't know why I'm so high on the
Your
Titans.
boy,
So
you and
so
Jawan
so
Jennings and this guy
so
every
Chris,
year.
I don't know. Like I'm Chris. What you think about that? I'm a big. I don't know why. I every year I think Chiga Kwankwo
I
is
love
going to
his
be a
name.
thing.
That's what I love about him. But then
I think, yeah. I mean, he's
Every
definitely
year I think he's going to be a thing.
he's
Jig.
definitely in an environment to be, right? I mean, you would think. But for me, Ridley, I think would be, if I had had to take somebody
Well,
from
there's one
Tennessee,
win on this episode.
it would be Calvin Ridley. It's just because of the targets. I mean, he's obviously going to be Cam Ward's guy. It's just I just don't trust the environment. It's a bad offensive environment. I avoid bad offensive environments as a fantasy drafter.
I think that's very sound advice. This is the worst division in football. It has been the worst division in football for the last few years. It likely may be again. The division winner likely will probably win 10 games max, or 9 to 10 games. So we will see what will happen. That'll do it for today's episode, the AFC South Fantasy Football Preview. Thank you so much, Chris, from the Marshall Experience. Again, you can catch him at the Marshall Experience on TikTok and YouTube. Thank you, Knack. Thank you, Fab. Fab, welcome back again. Great to have you aboard going forward.
It's wonderful to be here.
You could follow us on YouTube, Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, X, Twitter. See you next time for the NFC South Fantasy Football Preview. That is it for us for today.
Talk about bad division.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Peace.
Awesome. That was great.
The Marshall Experience.
Bye, everyone.